my screen.
Says
Yeah, she is.
I'm gonna try again.
Go to page 2.
Oh,
I don't know, but you're definitely must.
Sharon's on page 2.
Yes, they will see.
Lisa, are you here?
Welcome, everybody.
Oh,
Hello, hello,
It's good to see so many of you.
hello.
Everybody hear me?
This was a great idea.
Okay, can everybody mute their speakers right now and let me talk? And then we'll have time to talk as well. So please mute your speakers. Okay. It's good to see so many of you here. As you know, NCJW was founded in 1893. It now has, according to the website, 180,000 members in 60 local sections in 30 states. It's a grassroots organization of volunteers and advocates who turn progressive ideals into action and sponsored by Jewish families. NCW strives for social justice by improving the quality of life for women, children, and families. That's a quote. Here at Laguna Woods, we support a number of organizations such as Moms of Orange County, Friendship Shelter, the Laguna Woods Foundation, just to name a few. We also take advocacy positions for bills both in California and the national government that support women, families, children, and rights. Right now, it's important that we're knowledgeable about the issues and propositions and vote. All right. Getting out the vote is a top priority. I know that many of us are struggling with the limitations the virus has placed on us. One good thing has been Zoom. While we can't see each other in person, it does give us the opportunity to expand our reach for many different kinds of programs. We have programs scheduled for the second Friday of every month for the rest of the year. So stay tuned. If you're not a member and you want to be, it's $36. And you can let me know at the end of the meeting and I'll tell you how to join. I want to wish all of you a Shana Tova if you celebrate the holiday. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to, I hope, to Lisa.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Lisa, are you here?
Cranberry salad. The brisket. No rice pilaf. The other two.
I see Lisa. Hey, Lisa? Okay.
No dessert.
Lisa, unmute your mic.
Sharon?
Diet root beer, please.
Okay, we're ready.
I'm not supposed to risk
Karen, are you recording this meeting?
sides, no
Yeah.
dessert.
Being recorded.
Salad.
It's being recorded?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
The sound is breaking up.
Hello?
Lisa, she turned the meeting over to you.
I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulties.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't, I'm having trouble with my iPad. And okay, now I'm back in.
Okay.
Oh no, you can see my neck. Okay, hi. I'm sorry. I'm really having technical difficulties. Now you're seeing the ceiling. All right, can you hear me? All right, can you see me and hear me?
we can see you. We can hear
Okay,
you.
good.
Lisa,
All right,
Lisa,
thank you.
there's an echo and it's showing up that you have 2 screens. I don't know.
Yes, I know. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna get rid of that other one. All right, is that better? Shoot. I am really having a big challenge here. Okay, that should be fine. All right, is our speaker here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm very
there you
happy
are.
to be
Hi.
here. Hi,
Nice to
Lisa.
see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to introduce you now to our lovely group. This is Michelle. You say Musacchio or
I say Musacchio, yes.
Musacchio? I never know with the H and the
Yeah. It's
CH.
kind of like
Musacchio.
Pinocchio.
Michelle Musacchio is a board member and director of voter service for the League of Women Voters of Orange Coast, which serves 15 cities from Seal Beach to San Juan Capistrano. She is a member of the Community Safety Diversity Working Group of her Irvine neighborhood, where she's lived for 24 years. Here's the really impressive part. A founder of UCI Gene Targeting, GENE, Targeting Core, and a researcher in cell-cell communication. Michelle holds a PhD in genetics from Harvard University and undergraduate degrees in biopsychology and linguistics from Barnard College. So she's well qualified for anything and everything. She's going to lead us in our pros and cons guide for the propositions. And can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to be sure.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm getting a weird non-picture here. Okay, I just want to ask if at the end when we have Q&A, how we can ask you, Michelle, from, how to let you know that we have a question. Raise the hand or unmute or what?
I prefer, if possible, because the propositions are so different, that
Yes.
people ask questions right away
Okay.
as I end each one. So I've tried to make a little time where I stop and say, are there any questions?
Okay.
But collecting the questions, often I mean, this is one of our first major presentations, so I don't have an assistant to collect the questions. So if one of you would like to do that, and I want to just, if you give me a sense of really when you want to end this meeting, given, the delay, then I can pace myself a bit better.
Okay, well, it's now 10:15, so
yes.
Can you get most everything done by 10:50?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be nice and rapid. Now,
Okay.
will I be able to share my screen to show slides?
Yeah, as long as we can see you there. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll
All
be
right, can
doing
everybody
that.
see Michelle?
Thanks.
Oh, they're muted, so they can't talk.
I'm gonna pin her, so she'll be the one. Oh, hi, Michelle. I'm Barbara.
I don't
Nice
see
to meet
her.
you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm coming off other meetings since 8 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Michelle, you can start now. And I think most of us are muted. So if you have a question to ask, then you have to unmute yourself and ask the question. I'm not sure how this will go. All right?
That sounds great to me. And, just I am not precious about it. So just interrupt when you need. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to apologize for some sounds in the background for the moment, but hopefully they will cool off once my husband finishes making the coffee.
Okay.
So, hi. Thank you so much for inviting me. And thank you, Lisa, for bearing with me. We were getting these materials together. And I'm really excited to be here with you. This is, I have to say, one of my favorite groups. You have an amazing organization, so it's really an honor to be with you. So I'm a board member of the League of Women Voters of Orange Coast. And we are very happy to be presenting this. I can give you a little idea of the League of Women Voters. Very similar. It's a grassroots organization, national, but it really is directed from the bottom up. And we were formed in 1920 when we were, you know, as women finally allowed to vote, but we have many, many men members. We are open to everyone. You don't have to be a voter or anything like that. We are nonpartisan. We are similar to you. We have, I don't know if you're incorporated, but we have a 501c3 arm and a C4 arm. The C4 arm is that one that is works for advocacy. The work I do with the League is entirely C3. That is entirely educational, nonpartisan. I do not support or oppose any candidate or political party, nor do I push for any advocacy issues in this instructional part of my mission. So our purpose is to have an educated and active electorate. The mission is to encourage informed and active participation of all citizens in all level of government through education. So today I'm here to review the California statewide propositions. I'm going to give you, the objective of this talk is to give you the tools you need that you're going to need for the next several weeks for really evaluating the propositions. I'm going to be grounding you in some principles. I'm going to be reviewing as quickly as I can the basics of the propositions, but it's absolutely impossible to really get the gist of everything across within this 30 minutes. So I do encourage you to refer to the pros and cons guide as the election season moves on. And I will be also equipping you with another online tool that doesn't take your information or anything, but it is one at which you can learn a lot about the election and your own particular ballot. And that is called Voter's Edge. So I'll be directing you to that at the end. So I will start. I will do my best to share my screen now. And we'll see. Oh, it says host has disabled attendee screen sharing. Is it possible to be made a co-host temporarily so that I can share my screen?
Push share your screen.
I'm sorry?
I push share your screen. So you should be
not. Okay, let me try. As I click share screen, I get a message that says host disabled attendee screen sharing. So
I'll send you something. I have to go in the other room because we're having.
I'm sorry about that.
See if I can do that.
Multiple participants.
Yeah, that's all right. Let's see what I can do.
Okay, well, I can.
Before you start, will you tell
to
the
me.
numbers? Will you tell the numbers of the proposition before you talk
Indeed.
about them?
Yes, and I'm going to be going to them in number order, even though that may not be the most important, but I'm going to give you an overview of the number of them that there are. There are 12, and then I will be running right through. Oh, wonderful. Something has happened.
I did.
Okay. Wow, thank you so much. Okay, let's see if I'm
I
gonna
don't
get
have that. Oh, shit.
Here we go, and let's see if I can get this. I'm going to ask you all to, interrupt me really as you need, because I am limited with how much I can look at the chat and those things. So here we go. So here, I've already introduced this. League of Women Voters does not support or oppose candidates or political parties. What are ballot propositions? Basically,
We don't see anything. All we see is this Zoom screen.
Oh my.
Yes, I've lost everyone also.
Yeah.
I see that I'm screen sharing.
I see you.
We are seeing Sharon next screen.
Okay, I see. If Sharon stops sharing,
Now, how can
I can send you a link to this slide presentation possibly, but I'm a little afraid that won't.
I stop share?
Okay, that's
right,
good.
now you can.
You're
Let's-
back.
Okay, let me try the share screen again.
No,
And-
don't. Don't.
No, this is fine.
You know, we're getting too much. Could you please mute yourself? Not you, Michelle.
Oh, for gosh sakes. Okay.
There it is. Thank
It's
you.
working.
Michelle, you're muted.
Yeah, I can't hear her either.
But the screen is up.
It's on number 17. Are you not starting with 14?
You are muted, Michelle.
Okay,
Michelle, can you hear me?
now I'm muted. Now I'm
Oh, you're
unmuted.
unmuted.
Now I will start with 14, don't you worry. And here we go. And you will get the super fastest review there is. Here we go. Share
Proposition?
screen. Here we go. Share this. And we should be at what are ballot propositions?
Okay, go.
And here we
Yes.
go. There we go. So thank you so much. Here we go. So, so propositions can make new laws, change existing laws, and sometimes they change California's constitution. Anything that comes in to change California's constitution has to then be approved by the voters. In fact, any law that becomes put out in front of the voters by a ballot proposition can only be changed and amended by being put in front of voters. So they can be placed on the ballot by either collection of enough voter signatures or by state lawmakers themselves.
Somebody's phone is ringing.
Hold
Sorry,
on.
wait.
Can everybody mute?
Shall I hold on?
Everybody should be muted except our speaker.
Michelle, please
Yes.
continue.
I will indeed. So these are the things to think about. All ballot propositions require a 50% yes vote to pass. And that comes down to the heart of one of the things about ballot propositions, which is that they are posed as a yes or no decision. We are not able to tweak it on the vote. That's helping us to evaluate whether it's a good proposition or not. Is it too complex for a yes or no answer? The problem may actually be too complex for that. Is what's proposed an actual solution to the problem? And even if it passes those two conditions, is it written well? Because a poorly written law can actually cause a lot of problems. Is it paid for? Is it does it restrict the flexibility of the general California budget? That actually will have greater effects down the way. So don't think of these in isolation. Does it create new problems? Does it restrict the state budget? And as I mentioned before, does it change the constitution, the actual state constitution? A lot of what this comes down to is understanding who it is and what entities are supporting or opposing the actual ballot proposition. And a good tool that we use for that, and we will keep you focused on this, is to follow the money, which I have here down on the bottom with a little $ icon. The money that goes into either supporting or opposing a ballot proposition is sourced into political action committees. And it everything that they do is, as far as we're concerned, is advertising. It may be very well-reasoned advertising. It may be very helpful for you, but it's advertising. We do, our bottom line is that everything except for the state legislative analyst's office statements is advertising. And in our pros and cons, we put forth what the LAO has put forth. I will make this slide presentation available to all of you as a PDF, so that you can review all the statements that I don't read out loud because we're going to have to zoom through this. So here are all of the ballot propositions, just to give you an overview. There's only one that is a bond initiative, and that's the first one, Proposition 14. The rest are either initiative constitutional amendments, that is, that they've been put together as an initiative by the people. Voters have actually signed on to a petition to put it on. So those will be written up as ICA or initiative, either constitutional amendments or statutes. The other classification is legislatively placed things. These are things that our elected representatives have put onto the ballot. They're either constitutional amendments as LCA, as you see here, or they are just statutes. The last one that we have to vote on this cycle is Proposition 25, and that's a referendum. That is actually a review of an already passed law that people have challenged. And that's a very interesting one that I'm hoping I'll be able to get into. So I'm checking my time. It's 10:26 now, and I will run through these so that by 10:45, we will be able to kind of summarize. Okay, so these are the quick reviews of them. Proposition 14, as I said, is a bond measure, and it is very similar to, I don't know if you remember, in a few years ago, about 8 years ago, there was Proposition 71 that was a $3 billion bond measure. This is very much the same as that. It is now a $5.5 billion bond measure. In general, a bond is paid back over a period of about 30 years. And a general rule of thumb is that up to, it costs ultimately roughly double or a little less than double in terms of paying back those who buy the bonds. So if we sell 5.5 billion, it will cost about 7.8 billion to return, and that costs the budget about 260 million each year for the next 30 years. This is to support stem cell research specifically to California, and I think many of you may be aware that stem cells are very versatile cells that allow a regeneration of all sorts of cell types and creates disease models. That happens to be what I have studied a lot of, but it's it's something that the state has invested in. The new treatments may yield the state some revenue, and that is this is when I have a slide that says budget impacts, you can be sure that this is all information straight from the legislative analyst's office. This is not the league's new, we're not going through our own formula here. I want to point out that for each of the propositions, I'll be going in this kind of order. What is the way that it is now? What is proposed? What is the budget impact? What do supporters say? What do opponents say? And then a summary of what happens when you vote for it or when you don't. So for some of these, I'm going to condense it, but that is the basic structure. That's why I'm spending so much time on this one. So basically, here's what the supporters say. And these are just phrases that have been culled from the general publications that have been said about it. either advertisements or also newspaper articles. Stem cell bonds have led to new medical treatments and important research that should be continued in California. And it does end up providing the basis of work that will lead to cures for many insidious diseases that we're all fighting. So it is supported at the moment by 95 organizations. I've picked a few. These are my choices that just to give you a sense of who it is. Again, a really important tool in understanding propositions is figuring out who it is that is supporting it and what is their motivation. And you can really understand more about it if you look at the volume of money. Here on the bottom, you see total money raised is 6 million, and that is as of 2 days ago. And I will show you how to keep track during the election cycle of this amount for each of the propositions, because that is key. If you look at nothing else, look at who's paying for it and the volume of money, because that's a measure of how much those groups stand to get out of it in one way or another, either monetarily or in their missions. So I'm sorry, I just went backwards. Here we go. Here's what the opponents say. We should not be spending billions of dollars on Prop 14 when so many people are out of work right now. And also that there is the federal government and private groups are already helping pay for important stem cell research anyway. So far, 2 organizations have come out against this, but believe me, there will be more. And right now, the money is low on the reporting. We pull this money from Cal Access, which is a Secretary of State database that keeps track of all of the money that is put forth for these initiatives. And I also that is something that's very California specific. And another thing is the Fair Political Practices Commission does keep an eye on this. There is a website it's worth going to. But part of the function of the League of Women Voters is that we can cull that information and make it available to you in an easy way. So what happens if you vote for it? If you vote for it and it passes 50% plus 1, the state may sell these bonds. And it continues the California Institute of Regenerative Medicine's existing programs. If it does not pass, this $5.5 billion of funding will not be provided to the California Institute of Regenerative Medicine, and they will have to find other ways if they want to continue existing. So, Proposition 15, this is a big one. It increases funding for public schools, community colleges, and local government services. So for each of these, there'll be a question: should this be adopted? So should the California Constitution be amended so that most commercial and industrial property is reassessed on a regular basis? This proposition addresses existing status of assessing the value of property that was set in 1978 by Proposition 13. So the way it is now, land used for businesses and shopping centers and things like that is called commercial property. Taxes, the owners of this property, they pay taxes based on how the property was assessed at a certain time of purchase. And there's a very slow incremental increase in those taxes. The result is that a lot of land in California that is owned by commercial and industrial entities is undervalued. So what would Prop 15 do? It would change the rules for those taxes, and it would reassess based on what the property is actually worth. It only applies to people and businesses that own more than $3 million in commercial property. This has no change in taxes in residential homes. And the impact would be for local governments, everything county and citywide. They would basically, for statewide, it would increase to about on the order of $10 billion more per year. 60% of that would be distributed to local governments, and the rest goes to schools and community colleges.
Excuse me.
Yes, please.
I feel that this would help the plight of businesses out of California.
This is a very big concern, you know, because businesses right now, this is something you'll have to use in your evaluation. Businesses right now are here based on the balance of their return and the taxes that they will start incurring. So and that's something that we can only surmise, we can't predict, but we've seen it before when we lower taxes in certain industries, those industries stay. But that's just my impression, and that is something that people are going to have to evaluate as we go forward. So the supporters say that wealthy companies have basically, you know, been getting a huge break since 1978, and they should be paying property taxes based on what their holdings are really worth. A new business acquiring new commercial property buys land at what it is worth. This is just addressing those businesses who had land as corporate land before 1978. So it is a very specific set of industries that have this. New developments in industry in California, they are paying what that land is worth. This is just to normalize and get everything back up to the same level. So this is to restore the support to education that California had enjoyed, you know, anywhere from the 50s on through the end of the 70s. 124 organizations have signed on to this. For example, the PTA of California, many elected officials, and they are looking at $36 million in support money. The opponents right now, and I'm sure there will be many more than this, the California Chamber of Commerce came out against it this week, and there will be more joining in. They say that raising taxes will increase the cost of everything that people buy, including food, gas, and healthcare. And this is what they say, so you can evaluate it. And Proposition 15 will hurt small businesses that are struggling during the current pandemic. You will see in the next few weeks, just about everything will be interpreted in terms of the pandemic, and that is a realistic kind of assessment that we have to make. I mean, this is something that happens. So those are the situation. Proposition 15, if it's adopted, it would be reassessed.
We walk and I can listen.
Pardon? If it's adopted, it would be reassessed to market value on a periodic basis, independent of when it changes hands. And then if not, commercial property would not be reassessed and things would stay the same. Value of most property in the state that, you know, overall, I mean, this depresses property values. I mean, the inequality does affect other properties nearby. And like I said, this is, there are special provisions for small businesses, those ones that are fewer than 50 employees. There's, and this only applies to those businesses who own more than $3 million worth of commercial property. Okay, so let's move on.
Michelle, I have a question.
Yes, please do.
On that proposition, is it, I mean, because of the pandemic, if it got approved, has anybody considered putting a new year on it so it wouldn't be immediate?
That's a good question. If it gets approved, any change to it has to be put to the voters. Okay. So it is,
So if we vote yes, it's in effect. That's
it's in effect. It starts effectively, I think the assessments start in 2022 and it then really starts having positive effects. That is that the money starts coming in bulk around 2025. However, yes, I mean, businesses are going to have to make their decisions right away. I don't know to the extent to which executive order can change it. This has become a country of executive orders, including the executive order of the governor. So that is unfortunately above my pay grade. I really don't know, but those are things to consider. Yeah, I don't know how that'll work. It's a good question. So 2 propositions address the previous Prop 13. This one was only on commercial and industrial property. Prop 19, which will come up in a few moments, will be on primary residences, and that'll be familiar to you. So I am working at 5 minutes for the rest. So here we go. I'm going to, do my best. I think I'm going to take at least 7 minutes. So
You can have more time.
yes?
You can have.
Okay. I'll just try to be mindful. Okay.
I mean, we have the time, so just.
Okay. But I appreciate your time, and I really want to do, do honor to the time that you've already spent. So let's go through this. This is a constitutional amendment, as you may be aware, that in 1996. And I'm going to ask you, if you do want to interrupt me, just keep at it. So don't give up, because I'm hearing a few things and I think it's just unmuted people, and that's fine. But you'll just have to say, Michelle, 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 just stop talking. So here we go. In 1996, California voters approved Prop 209, which generally banned the consideration of sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in all California public employment, public education, and public contracting. So that has been an issue. After voters approved it, a lot affirmative action was effectively killed in California. There have been some modifications, but basically affirmative action in hiring and awarding contracts is now disallowed. This amendment is to address that. Budget impacts are pretty, are assessed as pretty minimal. I think it's going to have a huge effect socially, but the Legislative Analyst's Office has declared that there would be no direct effect. The supporters, of course, say, yes, on Prop 16 means equal opportunity for all Californians. And just, despite living in the most diverse state in the nation, women and people of color currently are still discriminated against. We see that reality every day. And they say that we are at a historic moment and need to strengthen California by overturning discrimination in all its forms. So this has a $5 million set of people who are doing it just for social change reasons. The opponents say that basically it would be a step backward, because now we would be going ahead and recognizing these groups differently, introducing a new form of discrimination to favor politicians' favorites. That's one of the phrasings that people have come up with. It will require costly bureaucracies to enforce its provisions, burdening taxpayers. Again, this is what the opponents have come up with. So if we do pass this, it will repeal the section of Prop 209. If we don't, Prop 209 ban stays in effect, and these things may not be considered as we go on. So any questions about that one? Or you can hold your questions too. But
Michelle?
Yes.
I'm a little confused. If
Yes.
you vote yes on this, you are, you want discrimination, or you don't want it?
Well, it depends on how you define discrimination. What this does is it says can we consider diversity as a factor? Can you, basically, if you vote for this, you're voting for affirmative action.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay,
Thank you.
so there we go.
Okay.
All right. Proposition 17 is basically about restoring the right to vote after people complete their prison terms. Currently in California, you know, the question is, should the people who have finished their time in prison be allowed to register and vote once they're on parole? So I'm sorry, I've concatenated this one, but basically, currently in California, it is not the same in all states, but in California, if you are still on parole for a felony crime, you are not allowed to vote. You are re-entering in society, but you are paying taxes, you are working, you are reporting to your parole officer, but you are not allowed to take part in civic engagement. If they want to correct that, because I'll talk about what the supporters say, but basically the budget impact is that there would be more people voting, and that they estimate that about, you know, several $100,000 would be needed to support more of those people. So Proposition 17 supporters say that people on parole pay taxes, they should be allowed to vote. And we are expecting them to rebuild their lives, and taking a stake in their community is only fair. There have been arguments also that since the incarceration system in California has traditionally been very discriminatory, this does actually impact some groups much more than others. And it is a form of, you know, they argue that it is a form of continued discrimination. Proposition 17 opponents say, well, look, parole is a time for serious and violent criminals to prove that they have changed. And when they get out of prison, they should complete parole before being allowed to vote. So it's a matter of how you feel that, you know, what they should be allowed to do during the time of being on parole, when they are effectively starting to function in society again. So you either restore the rights with a 50% vote, or you don't. And if that will, you know, can then be addressed at some other time. So Proposition 18 is also voting rights extension, and this is taking into account, it permits 17-year-olds to vote in primary and special elections if they will be 18 by the next general election. That's to say that there's a special relationship between primaries and then the general election. And if you're ready to vote in the general election, you've already, in most cases, invested in helping to select who it is that's running in that general election. That is, you've participated in the primary, you've taken a stake at it, and now you are more compelled to vote in the general. And that's what the data has shown us. So this was proposed so that we could complete that cycle and not dissociate those people who are not yet 18 by the primary or the special election. They're saying they're effectively disenfranchised, because once they don't get to choose who's running in the primary, they are disincentivized to vote in the general. There is a budget impact based on the number of on the population, and so it would cost up to $1 million statewide for every election cycle. So that's roughly every 2 years. If you do vote for it, I haven't given you the pros and cons there, but basically the supporters say that it will allow 17-year-olds to participate in a full election cycle. And I think I've basically summarized it for you. That they feel that they do have a lot at stake. They are affected by policies that are set in very local elections, including schools. And It allows young people to start getting involved in voting. And opponents say that they are going to be too influenced by others who are in charge of them, such as teachers, and that they are not fully developed in the logic and reasoning portion of their brains. So those are the ways it looks, and that's what's the California voters are being faced with. So are there any particular questions about that?
No.
One thing I'm going to look forward to is I'd like to get a number, just an estimated number of how many 17-year-olds per year or election cycle actually fall into this. How many people does this affect? So I will update you if I find out.
Michelle,
Okay, proposition. Pardon?
I was just going to say, I mean, I have a 17-year-old granddaughter who just turned, and she's going to be voting in the next election. And I really can't see the difference between not having her vote in the primaries than, not voting in the general election. I mean, she's just as interested now as she would be, a half a year from now. And it doesn't make any sense for her not to be able to do that.
Right. Yeah. And she's well, she might be a special granddaughter too, because she has someone like you. But I think that there's actual data that does say that, like, if you don't get to vote in that primary for, let's say, selecting who's going to be president, you're kind of not interested later, or not as focused. But I think, I don't know how I feel in particular. I don't know. My daughter's 21 and there's things she can't decide on, but she's very engaged with voting. So I would love to have had her be able to vote in the primary when she could. All right, this is Proposition 19, which also affects Prop 13 rules. This came before the voters. As you are an engaged group, this did come before the voters in 2018, and this is a little bit different than before, but it's essentially the same proposition as, I think it was called Proposition 10 at the time. So it did not pass, and so this is just the same thing again. This is to modify the rules. Basically, there are, the way things are now is that certain properties sold at a certain time before, older properties that are older than, oh wow, I can't remember right now, 15 years I believe, are limited to how much the taxes go up per year. There are groups that can buy a new home without I'm getting a little feedback, I'm sorry, paying higher property taxes, but they are limited to living within their county when they change homes, or they have to do it within 2 years of aging up, or they have a limit on even if they have had a disaster impact. So this seeks to change those restrictions, and I'm sorry, what it would do is basically expand the fact and allow them to move not just to anywhere in their county, but anywhere into the state up to 3 times. And it allows those who are disabled and have been affected by a natural disaster to also keep that lower assessment as they move to another home. So the impacts would increase some taxes and lower others. It's not a huge impact in general. Proposition 19 supporters say that people should not have to pay higher property taxes on a new home if they lose their home in a disaster, and it protects older homeowners. Proposition 19 opponents say, well, it's a tax increase because it's going to, the reassessment to market value for some of the homes is going to force families to sell their property because they can't afford it. That's you know, it's not that many. I think that it's not affecting that many homes, but it is something that has just not been popular simply because it's an alteration of Proposition 13. So go ahead.
I think it's a little more complicated to understand than that, because it's
Okay.
also something to do with passing down to the next generation, I think.
It does. You're right.
So that complicates things possibly when you die with the people who inherit from you. Could you discuss that a little bit more, please?
Yes. Let's see. So the way it is now, special inherited property rules allow some transfers without resetting the taxable value. And so when a principal residence is inherited by adult children or between grandparents and grandchildren, the heirs inherit the original owner's lower property tax assessment. In this case, while it expands some of the options for where you could move to, it does affect the inheritance. So it provides an upward tax assessment adjusted for inflation to owner-occupied inherited properties with a market value of more than $1 million greater than its taxable value. So there is a formula that says, okay, this goes above the threshold, which means it needs to be assessed at the higher value. So, and those are the more expensive homes that get inherited will become reassessed at a higher value. So if you own something that is up in that area, your heirs are going to be paying a much higher tax.
Excuse me, is this only on residential, or is it on commercial property that you would own?
It's very good. Yes, it's just residential. This only affects primary places of living. So this is not for, let's see, this does not affect, this is only for principal places of living. So this, if you own a lot of properties that somehow are covered by Proposition 13 and you are renting them out, that does not count as your primary residence, and so it's not being affected at all. Let's see. So that, you know, this one, I believe that I have an analysis that we call a deep dive on this, and I'd like to send it to you so that you can take a deeper look at it. That the deep dive analysis is also done by the League of Women Voters, and they really do review the numbers there. I am just still trying to learn about all of these things. So, the supporters say that it does close tax loopholes on inherited properties not used as primary residences. So that's what they feel is happening, that there are some restrictions, but that if it's used as a primary residence, and you know, people who inherit a home could only pay lower taxes if they live in the house full time. The way it is now, there are loopholes there. That is, if it's not where you're living full time. So you will, though, hear advertisements that will tell you, watch out, if your home is more than $1 million, you are, you know, you're going to have a terrible time trying to get rid of it, or, you know, have your heirs inherit it. And that is not actually true. There are only certain conditions in which that's the case. Those ones, if that is a place you're living full time, you are protected. Your heirs are protected. However, you know, just the nature of what those loopholes are the things to look at in a deep dive.
Where are the pros and cons?
The pros and cons for that?
Yeah.
So the pros say that it's important because this allows people to who are seniors, who are wildfire victims or people with disabilities, they had a lot of restrictions. They do currently have a lot of restrictions where they can move and when they can make a transfer to retain the lower property value for their new home. That's sort of a transferring of their Prop 13 protection gets transferred to a new home. This
I'm on a Zoom meeting. Can I call you back?
So, so this basically says, hey, you can take your Prop 13 protection and move upstate or downstate or somewhere else. And that has to do with the fact that you may be stuck in a county where the only other properties available to buy are much more expensive.
Oh.
So this allows you to go statewide and expand where you can buy it. And it also reduces the time period and allows you more times to transfer that Prop 13 protection. So it only applies to these special groups. And so that's the one side of it. But on the other side is the issue of the increase, there's more restrictions on how
Where's the no?
there's more restrictions on how much the way you can pass your primary property on to your heirs, and that they will be reassessed at a higher amount. Some people call those loopholes, other people call those things that they were planning on. It was part of their whole fiscal planning for their whole life. And now if it gets flipped, it may affect them. So this is what the supporters say. And the con is that it is effectively a tax increase because some properties are going to be reassessed at a higher value. That means that it's more taxes, and it could hurt families who can't afford to pay taxes on an inherited family home, even though it is worth more than $1 million. I mean, as you know, many of our homes have, suddenly are worth $1 million. That's not what we paid for them to begin with if we didn't have the Prop 13 assessment. So it could affect people that way. So it is very, it has multifacets. And like I said, I do have a deep dive on this, and I would be happy to share it through Lisa. Because this is going to be, you guys are going to be hearing a lot of it over the next 8 weeks.
Okay, next.
Here we go. Proposition
20. Okay.
This one is about, pulling back on some of the prison reforms that happened over the past decade. The three measures that you may be familiar with is AB 109, Proposition 47, and Proposition 57. And those were intended to reduce the state prison population. And in fact, they have reduced the state prison population.
They're on the streets.
Excuse me? So it redefined certain nonviolent, non-serious felonies as misdemeanors. So it classified things only as misdemeanors. This is asking, Proposition 20 is asking us to say, no, we want those to be felonies. And there's, if you've looked at AB 109, which is a particular thing that I'm studying now, it has a lot of community-based resolutions of how to deal with offenses. It actually allows communities now to input whether they're being over-policed or over-incarcerated. However, people would like this. This was put on by the voters, and there seems to be a movement to increase the severity of charges. So right now, felonies are considered by the legal system to be the most severe crimes. When people get out of prison for a felony, that they are going to be on parole. Prop 20 would undo parts of these crime laws, such as AB 109. Some of the interesting changes that they would make is that petty theft crimes that are repeated are going to be treated as felonies. Prop 20 also changes whether you can be considered for early release because of your time in prison. And in a very important thing that Prop 20 does is says you can collect legally DNA from adults convicted of misdemeanor crimes as part of a state database, and that is not allowed right now. So budget impact depends on how the law is applied and whether it's going to be challenged. Believe me, it will be challenged, but that's an important part of our process. So it would definitely increase the state prison population. So those costs will go up. Proposition 20 supporters say that it reclassifies these crimes to bring them back up to being violent crimes, and that would stop car break-ins and shoplifting and other theft that they claim has been on the rise. The opponents say that it's actually rolling back prison reforms, and it will cost taxpayers many more. We had wanted to reduce prison population before. It does slash mental health and rehabilitation programs that help prepare people for release. And those were some of the community-based programs I was referring to. And it will result in extreme sentences. At the time I made this slide, 2 organizations had come out against it. One significant review editorial in the Orange County Register came out a couple weeks ago, coming out against Proposition 20, saying that it overreached. So, and there's $3 million against it being raised, and I believe there will be many more people coming out on both sides of this one. So if it passes, it expands the list of crimes. Misdemeanors are moved up to some felonies, and the state would be required to collect DNA from people who do things like shoplift. And if it doesn't pass, the standing of AB 109, Props 4757, all of which were supported by voters, will continue. So are there any questions about that one? I will, so we only have a few left, and I think I will zip through, but I want to make sure that you stop me for what you think is really important. So with Prop 21, this is a rent control proposition. This allows the state, basically the proposition is, should cities and counties apply rent control to housing 15 years or older and limit the rent increases to 15% once a new renter moves in. So this is referring to the way things are now. You may be aware that there is a state law known as the Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act that limits local rent control laws throughout the state. Rent control laws cannot apply to any single family homes the way it is now. They can never apply to newly built housing completed since early 1995, and they can't say how much rent can be charged to a new renter moving in. So there is no limit on things right now. They can charge any amount they want when a new renter moves in. There is a new state law that limits rent increases to 5 to 10% each year, but that only applies to housing more than 15 years. And that's the way it is now. Prop 21 would allow cities and counties to locally pass rent control rules as they see fit. Landlords could raise rent by up to 15% over 3 years on new renters, so they don't have that endless cap on it. One would only apply to landlords who own more than two housing units. And local rent control laws would still need to allow landlords to make some money each year. There's a provision that says it actually has to be, it can't ruin the investment for a landlord. Fiscal effects depends on whether or not cities and counties actually do take advantage of this and start passing rent control laws. There's a lot of disincentive to have a rent control law in a city as well. So it's not like cities and counties are rushing to do this all the time. There are certain highly impacted areas that have people that need rent control. There are other areas that are newly developing that do not. So it really is up to, this just allows cities and counties to make that decision themselves. The supporters say even small increases in rent will force more families into homelessness, and this will be a burden on everyone. So they feel that the way things are now, we need to deal with it. Many seniors and veterans are presently left with too few resources for food, medical care, and other needs. And not to worry, Prop 21, even though it's about rent control, it does guarantee landlords a reasonable profit. Not too much money has been raised on this yet. Proposition 21 opponents say, look, we tried this in 2018. We tried to pass something statewide like this and it had been rejected. Rent control always results in less available and affordable housing. And Prop 21 will stop new housing from being built and it will hurt the economy. And that's an evaluation that, again, is above my pay grade. It's about how well you understand how these things affect things. So if it's voted in, it means that local rent control, it reduces the limits. That is, it allows cities and counties, if they decide to, they could limit how much a landlord can increase rents. The way things are now, limits on local rent control laws as determined by Costa-Hawkins would remain. So that's, it may be that your area does not get very strongly affected by this, but it may have a big impact on high density areas of California. Any questions? Proposition 22 is a big one. This is, you'll be seeing it as the Uber and Lyft law. And what it addresses is, should app-based rideshare and delivery drivers be classified either as independent contractors? It says, should we go ahead and say they are classified as contractors, and should the companies be required to adopt some labor and wage policies unique to these drivers, not the same as having them as official employees? So this addresses the fact that an independent contractor as hired can choose when, where, and how to work. However, an employee has their schedule and work set by their employer. The critical thing here is a 2019 state law requires that companies such as Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash are required to hire their drivers as employees instead of independent contractors. That's the way things are now, and people have companies have been responding to this. So what is the proposal? Basically, it's summarized here, but I'm going to read off from here in the pros and cons. Minimum compensation would be required. They would have to pay at least 120% of the minimum wage. There must be a healthcare subsidy for these independent contractors. There must be medical expenses covered to some degree, but it is not the same as for a full-time employee. And there must be, because it is an on-demand system, there must be a rest policy. It would restrict drivers from working more than 12 hours a day for a rideshare company. So, yeah?
It seems to me that most of these drivers would be part-time, and out in the commercial world, part-time employees do not usually get benefits. Am I right?
That's true. So that's the point here. So they would be part-time, but what they're trying to do is create sort of a new classification where they're part-timers that have a certain requirement for some benefits. So it's sort of an intermediate. So it's instead of saying, okay, look, you're part-time, you get no benefits. It's saying you're at will, part-time, but because you're a driver, because you're working for these companies, you are entitled to a certain amount of health
Who's
care.
talking?
I
Kathy?
think part-time,
For routine blood work. Do you need my order?
Yes, do you have it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
sure do.
And you've been here before?
I have.
Okay.
I think part-time refers to the number of hours you work.
Yeah.
I think if it's more than 32, they have to pay benefits.
Okay. So there's that. So this, so that's going to be something I need to learn more about exactly. How,
Register?
how
For
many?
a sign up today? Where's
No,
my,
like you've ever been here before.
oh,
Mind if I see your ID?
yeah, I have been here before. That's so weird. Oh,
Hi.
oh.
Unmute yourself.
Somebody needs to be muted. If you're talking on the phone, could you? Thank you. That's great. So I need to know exactly what the situation is with part-timers now, and why is this different in one way or the other. So here, for this proposition, companies would have to help pay health insurance costs for contractors who drive more than 15 hours per week. It may be, this proposition was proposed because of the reality of Uber and Lyft drivers, which is that they are driving pretty much almost 24 hours a day. And that's been because, we'd like to say, well, it's their choice. They can say, do it for less, but there are some aspects of driving that do not allow people to I guess to say no to longer hours. But this is also right now, cities and counties do put rules on the companies, like that they may not do pickups in certain areas. And this is, cities and counties are trying to protect their licensed taxis by saying that they can't go in the areas near railway stations and airports. So that's been an ongoing battle. That's just the reality of things. So budget impacts to the California budget. To the budget itself, there may be some income tax increase, but there is a huge impact on what Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash will be paying out.
Michelle, you're muted.
That went too fast.
Michelle?
Michelle is muted.
I know, I see that.
What happened to the screen? We were on 23. We're going to 23.
We were on 22.
Right.
Okay, listen, guys. Michelle's got her finger up. Just wait. Give her a minute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. That's all I wanted to do. I don't know why I got muted, so I probably leaned on my keyboard or something. So thank you. So yeah, I just, because I'm screen sharing, I can't get a hold of things that fast. So
okay, there we go.
There we go. Thank you so much for being patient there. Prop 22, rideshare and delivery drivers, this is what the supporters say. They do want to work as independent contractors. They don't want to be restricted at working as employees. And forcing companies to hire drivers as employees would get rid of hundreds of thousands of jobs that would be easy to pick up, you know, if they are just as independent contractors. There's a huge number of organizations that are involved in this, mostly chambers of commerce and certainly Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash, thank you, are behind this, business councils, but also a lot of small community organizations are jumping in on this, saying, look, our people are needing to drive or needing to split jobs because of many demands on their lives, and having the flexibility to be an independent contractor is really what they want. Already now, over $181 million have been spent. So this really is in contrast to some of the other propositions. So there's a lot of big money here saying, you know, supporting this to say, look, we don't want them to be employees. We want them to be contractors. The opponents say, look, this is the deal. Rideshare and delivery companies just don't want to pay the basic benefits. Treating drivers as employees would, as they are now, the way things are now, they are being treated as employees. That would make sure that they get the sick leave and unemployment benefits that they need. And here we have a lot of the labor federations are behind it, teachers, transport union workers, firefighters. There's a whole bunch of people for this. And in contrast to the other one, there are mostly elected officials that are pushing this, but they've only put together about $5 million on this advertising against it. So
I'm a little confused. I don't understand why the drivers wouldn't want to get these extra benefits that union members get, and why they're not for it, why they're against it.
Because the way it is now is that they are employees. So the way it is now, if you see the second one here, rideshare companies have been told that the 2019 state law requires that they actually hire these as employees. So right now they have better benefits than they would as independent contractors. However, by being hired as employees, as full-on employees, they are not allowed to say, hey, look, I only want to work half days. They have to be hired for a certain amount of time to qualify as employees. So it's all or none right now. And I think I'm understanding that this proposition is to say, no, the nature of this industry is that people want it to be flexible, and they would like to have a special status, which is not quite as badly supported as a total part-timer, but you get some guaranteed benefits, but it is not as full-blown as having a full-time employee job. And the devil's in the details on this one. And I think if I get a deep dive on Prop 22, I know I don't have it yet, I will send it to you all, because I think it does come down to what is, it says it's got some protected benefits here, but really, is it enough or not? Is it just like, hey, we'll you get $250 worth of healthcare dollars, and that's what you get, right? I'm afraid I don't know. This prop, if you want to have a lens in terms of what to think about, this is affecting, when I said the I'll put it here, this 2019 state law, I didn't specify, that is called AB 5. And AB 5 is happening, there is something every week going on in the legislature on AB 5. Recently, I think some journalists were reclassified as independent contractors. So this is a very dynamic part of California economy.
This is Ellen. I just want to add, I do taxes.
Okay.
They're making it look like it's a sweet deal for the Uber drivers, but they lose a lot of tax benefits, a lot. Plus the fact that who's to say if they become an employee and they get medical insurance, that it's going to be so minimal that it's not going to affect them to the point of being a benefit to them. Many of these Uber drivers only work part-time. They would not get any type of benefit, and they would lose so many tax deductions for themselves. That's one thing. You mentioned following the money. And the people that want to pass this are the taxi drivers, because they're caught in the fact that they are required to be an employee. And so they charge higher prices. And they're charged higher prices because the company then has to make a lot of money, where the Uber drivers have been very satisfied with the way it was. And they know they're not going to benefit from it. And this is for California. California can make more money. And that's, I think, where I see the benefit is California is going to make money off of this. I think we'll lose this whole Uber thing has been such a popular way of traveling for so many people. We're going to lose a lot of Uber drivers because it will not be profitable for them to continue. So tax-wise, they're going to get in the shorts.
That is if this passes.
Correct. If this passes, they want to keep it as it is. I think who's pushing this is the state of California, and they will make money off of it in employee taxes, which some of them are not paid if you are an independent contractor.
I see. So that's interesting. So as it says here, at least the Legislative Analyst's Office said that there won't be that much, but it really doesn't address what you're saying, that the tax deductions would, you know, they actually have tax benefits right now with AB 5. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. They have tax benefits. They can deduct their gasoline, their mileage. There's lots of things they can deduct that they will lose if they become an employee, because our tax structure has changed. If you're an employee, you cannot deduct anything as an employee. Nothing. Travel, nothing.
So that's interesting.
Conversely, I would imagine that some of those Uber drivers are not paying taxes and declaring their work.
Well, that's not true. This is Ellen. They must. They have to pay where the company, if they were an employee, the company would pay half of the Social Security, and the employer would pay half. The employee would pay the other half. If you are an independent driver or independent, then you have to pay both halves. So Social Security will not be affected in any way whatsoever by the change of laws or the way it is right now. What will not be paid by an independent contractor is unemployment. It won't go into the unemployment. And there's other taxes that they don't pay if they're independent. Now, if they work for a company and the company says you have to work 40 hours to get medical coverage, or maybe 35 hours and you will get medical coverage that's so costly you're not going to buy it anyway, then you know, you don't know what they will receive by becoming an employee. But as it is now, they know exactly what they have, and that's why they chose that job. Now, you would sound like I am actually for or against, I should say for it. And I think it's going to make a big difference because the state wants to get into some of that profit. And the profit would be, they would end up getting tax for unemployment. They would get tax for SDI, which they're not now. They would lose the benefits of being an independent contractor, which is they can't deduct anything, nothing. They can't.
Can I interrupt for a minute? I have a different view. I think there's points to both sides.
Well, there is.
But for example, if the company has to pay unemployment into the employment fund for their employees, that allows layoffs, et cetera, or things that can happen. Lets the drivers get some unemployment benefits. They also, I've listened to a number of people who were drivers, and they have that it's very difficult because hours are changed, their working conditions get really bad. You know, they use their own cars, they have to pay their gas. Some things can be deducted, but not.
I'm sorry, can this conversation be for another time? We want to hear the rest of the propositions, and we can make our own decision by doing our reading.
Thank you, whoever said that. Let's go, number 23.
Okay. I appreciate this though, and I'd like to you know, maybe Ellen, you can fill me in later, or you know, we could get connected, because I want to be able to get right to the heart of it when I run this past people. I'm getting the sense that I've missed a big chunk of understanding, you know, a bit of what happens to unemployment taxes and SDI, et cetera. So thank you so much for bringing this up. All right, Prop 23. This is another kidney dialysis one. As you may be aware, you know, in 2018, there was a huge insistence on, you know, the local clinics wanted to be able to recover more money, and that was rejected. Here, this is, okay, I'm sorry.
Slide is incorrect.
The slide is incorrect. I'm just gonna skip it, but it's basically, read the top part, and it's just, this is a different version that I did not correct, I'm sorry. So it's a requirement for yeah, forget about the question there. I'm gonna leave it out there. This is the way things are right now, and I will tell you what the proposal asks for. And this, I believe the slides from here on are correct, but let's see what happens. Basically, the situation is that, as you know, people on dialysis are really chained to having to do it at a certain time, 3 times a week at dialysis. It's a huge part of their lives. This proposition is addressing how much, what are the requirements on personal doctors and clinic attendees, and the difference between those that are, you know, paid for by Medicare and those that are paid for by a private insurance. So what we have is Prop 23 is requiring that the clinics have a doctor present during all treatment hours. So this is increasing regulations to guarantee that there would be a doctor there, that clinics would have to report infections that are related to dialysis to the state every 3 months, and that clinics would not discriminate against clients based on their insurance. So as you know, that since they're different sources, they get a different profit margin depending on who's covering their insurance. However, the dialysis patient is still in the same boat. They still have to do what they have to do, but they may or may not have private insurance. So here's how things lay out for the fiscal effects. This has always been the threat. If you put restrictions or regulations on dialysis companies, they may close. Healthcare costs for the local governments would increase if this passes, because they need to cover these new employee regulations. That is, that they have to be there, and then therefore the state could actually recover some of these costs by increasing licensing fees, which makes it harder for the dialysis clinics because now they have to pay licensing fees. The supporters of this proposition say that dialysis is dangerous. There should always be a doctor available to help, that the regulations right now are not sufficient. It prevents discrimination and protects patients in rural communities. This is what they say. And some of the healthcare workers are for this. Actually, there's probably a lot more on board right now than when I made this slide. The opponents say that it would take thousands of doctors away from hospitals and emergency rooms. There's a whole bunch of load on the doctor shortage, and dialysis clinics, because of the increased licensing fees, might have to close due to increased costs. Most of the, as I recall that when I looked at this, it was really most of the SEIU. So in the previous slide, the SEIU and most of the healthcare workers are supporting this. Most of the medical councils and business councils are opposing this. And it's a 10-to-1 ratio in terms of how much money they have to pay for advertising on this thing. And when I say pay for advertising, I want you guys to be aware that the money going into the PACs also goes to candidates, for example, who say that they support or oppose them. So if you have a candidate running that is saying, hey, look, I really, I'm going to make this a case. I want, let's say the city of Irvine is going to stand against Proposition 23. That person then becomes eligible to have their campaign funded by that PAC. So, watch in your local city councils and your county supervisors for people taking stands on things that are outside the purview of their governance. I mean, of course, all state laws affect all local laws, so they have legitimacy. But do be aware that if somebody comes out and says, hey, look, I think Prop 20, we need to get criminals off our streets, and I like Prop 20, they are entitled to a lot of money that they wouldn't otherwise get. And that's something that we've seen a lot of. So be aware of big bloated PACs. All right, so if we pass, we get one licensed physician on site. Same level of care is guaranteed to all patients, regardless of how treatment is paid for. And there will be a new reporting on infections, a structure there, and probably increased licensing fees as well. But that's not guaranteed in the law, but it is a likely outcome is what the opponents are saying. And if this doesn't pass, current standards with limited requirements about staffing and hours would remain. So it's a matter of whether you know or think that the staffing and the care given to all patients is sufficient now, or if it's egregiously off. So Proposition 24 amends consumer privacy laws. Oh, I'm sorry. If there is anything to be said about dialysis, please speak up now. So 2018, the California Consumer Privacy Act was passed. This is what you've been seeing as you've been going to, let's say, a news site or a different website, and you suddenly get asked, would you like me not to sell your data? So this is amending that law, and it would change the fact, this is the requirement is It is going to increase the penalties on companies that fail to follow regulations. It is going to allow consumers to more easily opt in and out of sharing their data, and it changes the criteria for which businesses need to comply. That is the number of devices on which their apps or their websites are used on. And this would also create a new enforcement arm for California data. Here we go. This is the way it is now. We have the California Consumer Privacy Act. And it allows us as consumers to find out where our data is going if we pursue going through all of those. You know, it's available to us, basically. It's a bit of a rabbit hole, but at least it's available to us. The proposition would increase as consumer power over our own personal data, location data, etc. It would change categories of businesses that are affected by this. And it would, I think most importantly, create a state agency to enforce these rules and to issue fines.
No.
Okay,
need
so
another agency to look.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
So here we go. You know, a new state agency would cost the state 10 million or more per year. And this is what the LAO says, that the analyst's office. Enforcing privacy laws would likely cost the state in the low millions of dollars each year. Fines on companies breaking consumer privacy laws might counteract that. It just depends on how active they are. And they are, of course, going to pursue fines. Here we go. The supporters say that we just have to stop tech companies from tracking everything we do online.
Yeah.
You know, they would protect kids. There are children's privacy laws that are in effect that are very hard to enforce, and that this, by creating this agency, would be better. There are quite a few people interested in seeing this happen. The opponent says, look, Prop 24, as it is stated, still gives too much power to tech companies. It actually is limiting, you know, what looks like it's more access by consumers. They're saying it's actually allowing them to use more. So this is one of those things where somebody says, hey, that color is yellow, and the other one's like, no, that's green, and you've got to read it to understand whether it is getting more power or less power. And they also describe that it takes a lot of paperwork to send forms to every tech company to have their data protected. There's not much money yet going into this, but I believe this is something that is going to grow as people learn more about it. The opponents say that there are hidden economic discriminations. People without money to spend can't pay for loyalty programs, and they can expect worse connections, slower downloads, and more pop-up ads. And Prop 24 would allow employers to keep gathering data anyway, like employees, religion, or political activism. So that's what the opponents say, that there are still some things that are just not, that we cannot control as consumers, whether a company tracks or not. So this is a difficult one. So basically, to evaluate this proposition, it depends on how you feel about the Consumer Privacy Act as it stands now. This is going to make some changes. It would create a new arm of a new agency. It would charge higher penalties when this violations did happen. And I think this first one here would let consumers tell businesses not to use their personal data. That one, it is technically true. I think the details determine whether these are really effective ways to tell those businesses. Is it too much of a burden to figure out how to tell the businesses to stop. And in fact, if they're keeping track of your political activism, and that is not something that you can change, is Proposition 24 really the kind of control you want to see? So I'm afraid I wish I knew more about that, but at least I've alerted you to how to look up about it, and I will get into that in a moment. Prop 25 is simply a referendum on a new state law that was passed called SB 10. And SB 10, this proposal, if approved, will allow SB 10 to go into effect. SB 10 would eliminate the cash bail system. The referendum got put on because the cash bail companies, insurance companies said, hey, hold on, this is going to have too much of an impact. I'm going to get this up on and put it up against, or rather put it up for a vote again. So what does it mean? We have SB 10 now. Bail insurance companies SB 10 would do away with money bail system. So people arrested are now evaluated on other criteria and whether or not they should just stay in jail upon waiting for arraignment and charges and et cetera, and sentencing. Currently, the way things are now, you can be released from jail by paying bail, and bail companies profit during this. Prop 25 would say, look, SB 10 is in effect. There is not going to be a money bail system, and there is going to be an evaluation system in place that I will just say now is a very controversial evaluation system, the way it's set up, and it would give judges a lot of power. And so that's what SB 10 does. Budget impacts for California would certainly increase workload for state trial courts. And on the other hand, there could be reduced jail costs. So there's a prediction that the costs mid-hundreds of millions annually. The supporters say, look, bail is unfair. Only rich people can get out of jail. Prop 25 means that decisions will be based on public safety rather than an ability to pay for bail. There's a lot of organizations who support Proposition 25 as it is. That is, they support SB 10 as it's been passed. The opponents say, look, SB 10 and eliminating bail is good. However, looking at SB 10, it may effectively put more people into jail anyway because of the control by the courts as opposed to by the community. Prop 25 will cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And a lot of people are against it as well. So, but the primary ones that are against it are the bail agents associations and those businesses.
Huh, that's
All
one
right.
I don't even know about how to think about.
I've looked at this. SB 10 was set up to, here's what happened with SB 10. It was set up to say, look, you could have your community support you. Let's say you've been arrested on some charges. You want to be able to stay home awaiting arraignment, to stay with your family, etc. And that rather than have that be a bail decision, it had originally been written so that community could come in. You could say, look, I'm part of the Girl Scouts. I've done this. I'm doing these kinds of positive things in the community. I'd like to keep doing that. I'm not a risk to safety. It used to be about a risk for flight, but basically this is to evaluate you in basic safety. That law, I will just tell you, it went through judicial review. There is a judiciary committee in the legislature that goes through it. And it got, basically it said, look, we're not going to take community input. We're going to only take judges' inputs and a predictive policing algorithms that will predict, let's say if you failed reading in the 4th grade, there's a prediction there. There's an actual data prediction that says you're going to, you know, commit a murder sometime later.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Passing it would allow people to work while they're waiting to find out their disposition in court. It's they're proven innocent until proven guilty.
that's right. Yeah, and the whole idea of the jailing system right now is to push it so that you're stuck in jail unless you pay a certain amount of bail. So of course there's a differential there. So the unfairness of the cash bail system had tried to be addressed the way SB 10 had initially addressed it, and the way the legislators passed it was based on community input to keep yourself, like, you know, if community had said, look, this person's been beating up kids all day long anyway, yes, let them stay in jail, we have no support for them, then they would have stayed in jail, but it would not have been based on their ability to pay. However, now, because of the Judiciary Committee, it is now the decision on whether you're safe or not is not based on the community, it's based on these predictive policing algorithms. And people are there's a huge amount of controversy on that. So if this passes, it would allow SB 10 to go into effect as it is, which is with those predictive policing things. So I can't tell you those predictive policing things are absolutely good or absolutely bad, but it's certainly, I can tell you that the idea of the community standing up on its own and saying, look, this person belongs in our community, this person should stay innocent until proven guilty, that's not an option now. I just want to let you.
Or they could say, no, this person needs to go to jail.
Yes, exactly. Community input goes both ways. So, but this just, it should be noted that what we, let me show you that the people who are trying most to say, look, we want cash bail are those, of course, those people who are in the cash bail system. And that, you know, that I understand that's an actual business. It's a huge business right now. So go ahead, please.
I was going to say, if people pay a bail, they have a certain responsibility to keep the court date. If they don't pay a bail, they can just run away. I mean, you could run away, but you'd lose your bail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I live in the, am I unmuted? I live in the west side of LA. And the amount of crime after Proposition 47 came into being was unreal. And I know a lot of people there want bail because people get, you know, they rob, it's less than 950. They're out the next day doing the same thing. So I know where I live up in LA, the west side, they're fed up with the crime.
Yeah. I mean, those are the communities we need to listen to, because this is a statewide law. This goes, you know, so it's a good point. And I think it's a matter of trying to listen to who. So on this one, really focus on who it is that's supporting or against it. And if you see communities standing up and saying, look, this is hurting us, we want the cash bail to stay, then that's important to you. Definitely, you know, vote against it.
And then families who lose the income of the person in jail end up on welfare, and that costs.
Oh, there's so much complicated.
I mean, if you vote for it, you are putting so many people to make a decision for one person, where if you vote against it, the judge says, I mean, the judge is there to judge. He could always say not so much bail, but it's a question of one person deciding, or if everybody's deciding for this particular person. Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel bad about these people that get picked up, didn't really do much, have these high fines, can't afford them. Now they end up in jail for not paying the fines. So I think giving the judges the choices is good for me.
Yeah, these are
Yeah,
important. It really does. I think
it's like too many cooks spoil the broth.
Yeah, I think what the issue is will the judges now be just saying, hey, look, I have this algorithm that tells me what you're going, how good you are, or could the judge, I mean, it would be great if the judge could be somebody who could just say, well, I'm actually listening to the fact that you're the breadwinner at home and you, whatever, I don't know. I'm not so much that, but that you're basically, I'm going to give you a chance here because it's my
Good
discretion to
person
do.
trying. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, well, see, yeah. It can go
But
to the judges, to the people who put them there, blah, 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 blah.
Totally true. And
Yeah.
these are,
It's a long line.
attention to these things makes us better people. I don't have a particular attitude about this particular proposition, but I do think that these are, I was disappointed to see what had happened to SB 10, but we got to move on and do something. So how do we do that? And what is the greater context in which people are being policed or maybe even over policed? But then again, I can't remember, somebody mentioned about, living in West LA and say, if they're being devastated, they want these people held. Who knows? I don't want to say who knows, but I do think that that's why voting works. You're asking everybody counts equally. So I've just,
sorry.
yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? I'm so sorry.
Please.
I joined late. I misread the time, and so now you're almost done.
Yeah.
Is there something recorded that I can listen to later, or is there a place to talk about? And you've already done this. I think it's for 15, 16, and 17. Is there a place?
That's actually a good intro into my next piece. So I don't know. I think this was being recorded, but I can't tell right now.
Yes.
Okay, so got that. And then
how to get it to people.
So here's how to get to this information. How, oh my goodness, I've just gone through everything. We've had a great conversation. I've really super enjoyed this. But here's the tools that we have available to you. So on the first level, what League of Women Voters has as a publication is this Easy Voter Guide. I think I put it up in the chat. I can put it up. This is for new and busy voters. It has quick summaries of the pros and cons of each proposition. It also has your basic websites and resources for understanding the general election, how to register to vote, when are the deadlines, where would you look up to where to vote, everything. And it actually has a review of the criminal justice system. What is the structure in California? So it's a really informative thing. It's available in 5 languages. I'm getting at least 2,000 of these. These are in paper. Of course, it's available as a PDF, but as a paper publication, that's really useful for people who don't always have unlimited time to just look at their computer screen, and they'd like to just maybe have it physically around. And so we're getting these out to seniors and to skilled nursing facilities and to any kind of congregant community where there's limitations on access. We're getting it to homeless shelters. We're even getting it into jails. So
how can we get one?
Is this available online?
Yes, it is. And I will later, I've given the links before earlier in the chat, and I will add it later in the chat. This is available online for sure. And it's available on our website at League of Women Voters of Orange Coast. And I will make sure you all get it. So this is a nice, easy voter guide. Yeah.
And we just go to easyvoterguide.org.
Yes, you can. And actually this thing is activated. So if I click it, it will load. So that's where it is.
Michelle, everyone that got a link got these 2 links. Everyone
okay.
Are they on our email?
Yes, it's on the email with the 2 PDF files.
Okay.
Excellent. So this is what it looks like, and I'll go back to my slide presentation. And so if you want what a lot of where, what I'd also posted out, this is just the pros and cons of this publication is just the pros and cons of the budget proposition. This is, again, the totally unbiased one. Within it, it gives you the basic principles of how to evaluate propositions, and the one page per proposition, it tells you basically what I told you today. So you'll be able to do that. Now, on top of that, the best that I have to offer is this site here, which is Voters Edge California. This is something where all of the information that I've just said is on here. And you can go to a deep dive straight from votersedge.org. Not only can you see your whole ballot as it exists, you won't see what it looks like, but I mean, you won't see it the way it's printed by the registrar, but you will see who's on your personal ballot without even putting in your name. You just put in an address in your area. You can put your own in, or, you know, if you don't feel comfortable putting your own in. Now, what's on this site is, I'm going to show you quickly, is all the ballot propositions. If you go and look at it, you can see that each proposition is summarized. You click on Learn More, and you'll learn more. And here's what happens if you click on 15. You can see where my red arrow is. The Easy Voter Guide is there, and it's right on this website. So, and this works really great on your phone, as well as on your iPad, as well as on your computer. So it's something that you can keep on going, and you can check it even in the polling booth. So you can get the Easy Voter Guide version, which is a summary. You can get the pros and cons version, which is a bit more in depth. And then you can go straight to the measure itself from this website and say, wait a minute. I want to see the taxing schedule on this particular proposal. And it also keeps, if you look at the bottom, it keeps a running tab of how much money is either for that measure or against that measure. And that is data that we pull from Cal Access in coordination with another nonprofit called MapLight, and they pull this information day to day. So you can, at any given time, look not only the total money raised, but who are the top 10 contributors. And that's stuff that no PAC can suppress. That data is entitled to us as voters, and we make sure it's available to you. If you look back up at the top, you can see that there is an election home tab. All your candidates are there. You can also find out about voting info. And over on the right, you see a tab called My Choices. That allows you, in fact, to choose what you think. You say, okay, I finally figured it out. I like Proposition X. I'm going to mark it as my choice. It is locally kept on your device, so this is not information that goes back to the League of Women Voters. It's just your choice, and then you can refer back to it later and say, what was I thinking about Proposition X? And it'll have it marked. So I find that totally useful.
Excuse me, to get to that site, do you have to go in through League of Women Voters California?
Not at all. You can just go to, if you see on this slide, it says
Voters Edge. You can get into all of that from Voters Edge?
All of that from Voters Edge. Okay. And what you put in, you can do it either of two ways. If you do it, if I back up, I can show you. So here I am, I'm going into Voters Edge.
Right.
And it should, whoop, no, it didn't do it right. Let me try this again. There we go. This is activated. So now it's going to load Voters Edge, if you can see it. This is what you see when you do it and you haven't entered anything. If I want to know.
I see Proposition 17.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh dear. So the screen sharing isn't working so great. I'm sorry.
You had Voters Edge, and you had.
I did.
You did.
And that's because, oh, I know why. Because my screen sharing, I'd have to change. a new share. So let me not try and do the technical stuff now. Now
Okay,
that you guys have put in so much time, I feel terrible about it. But when you go to Voter's Edge, just if you can hold on to this idea, you can enter a zip code alone, and it will give you ballot. It will give you everybody that is on the ballot down to your dog catcher, personalized, not identified to you, but personalized for that zip code. Or you may decide, I want to see all the races in the county. And you can go to a different button, and instead of putting in a zip code, you can just say, show me everything going on in Orange County, and you'll have access to all of that. So that way you can compare, oh, you know, I'm not in trustee district 3, but, you know, I can look at trustee district 5 and who are the people running for that.
Yeah, that's right.
That's for the candidates. For the state ballot propositions, it's statewide, so it doesn't matter. And then, but for particular other things like where to vote and stuff, that is going to be, we're going to have on Voter's Edge, we're going to have every single voting. You may be aware that we, in Orange County, we have vote centers, so that any single resident, or rather citizen voter of Orange County can go into any single vote center to cast their ballot, to return their mail-in ballot, or to register anew. Let's say you've moved 3 days beforehand and you want to vote in your new residence. You can do that in a vote center. Any vote center in the county will do. Any vote center in the county actually acts as if it were a registrar of voters.
Excuse me?
Yes?
You mentioned deep dive a couple of times during.
Yes, I have.
Could you explain that, please?
So the League of Women Voters, we have in the state, I don't know how, we have over 100,000 members in the state. We have about a dedicated staff of about 8 people up in Sacramento who do these analyses and deep dives. That is, they're the ones who compiled pretty much everything that you see in the pros and cons publication, but they also have now, just last week, they gave me a deep dive for 4 of the propositions, and I will get from them probably by, I'm hoping by Monday, the deep dive of all of the propositions. I can't remember which ones they've given it to me for. Now, these deep dives are all of them who've been working with legislators and understanding what the situation is. And these are long treatises on each of the propositions. That's what I would like to make available to all of you. These are, you know, people who, the work that's gone into it is by our own paid staff, our like 8 people that we pay. And it's a very good analysis. And I'm going to.
Do you know when ballots will be mailed?
Yes, I do. Ballots will be mailed starting October 5th. And that is, yeah, I guess that's a Monday.
Yeah.
And from that point, you may return your ballot by mail or drop it off in a ballot drop box. Or when the vote centers are open, you may drive it up or hand it off at a vote center.
This is Ellen. I have 2 questions.
Sure.
One is the deep dive that you talk about. Is that available for any of us to read?
That I don't know. That's a good question. I know that as soon as I grab a hold of it, I can get it to you. But I don't know if we put that up on a website. If I do, you know, I've been a member since 2016, but there's a lot I don't know.
The other, it's not a question. I just want to say that I moved from another area, and I registered online. It was available. They sent me a ballot, and I voted. I took my ballot and I took it to a place that collects the ballots. Okay, I just want to warn people about this. 3 months later, I got a letter saying that my signature on the ballot was didn't match my signature on registering. And so therefore my ballot was not counted. And I thought, what the heck? Now I don't even trust the mail-in ballots.
What state were you in?
California.
Kidding.
Was it Orange County?
Yes, I'm in Laguna Woods. And I moved from Seal Beach, Orange County, to Laguna Woods. And they let me change my address for voting online. I did it. I received a ballot. I even received a card saying that that it was transferred and I'm allowed to vote. They sent me a ballot. I filled it out, I signed it, and I dropped it off at a place in Laguna Woods that takes the ballots. It was 3 months later, I got the letter telling me my signature did not match on my ballot and therefore it was tossed out.
Could it be that you sometimes sign your full name and sometimes sign with your first initial and then your surname?
I did not. I signed my full name. They said it didn't match.
So have you gone to the registrar's office to fix it or talk to them? Because they will fix it.
I was stunned. I got a card saying I was registered.
You have to sign it the way the ballot is addressed. So if you leave out a middle initial or whatever, however the ballot is addressed to you.
I did not.
Can you please,
I can answer
can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. I've seen that you've tried to talk.
I have to give you important information. Every one of you will be receiving a ballot in the mail, and each ballot will have a barcode on it, your own barcode. When you fill out your ballot and you put it in the mail, you can track that barcode, and we will be sending you, Barbara Landsman will be sending all of our members the way to track your ballot as we get closer to the time when the ballots are coming out. I suggest you keep an NCJW folder so that you can put all this information in there and keep it. And then you will be able to track your ballot. Colorado has been doing this for years, and many states have gotten the idea and the way to do this from Colorado. So your ballots will be safe. Don't be afraid to vote that way. Don't listen to what you hear on the television all the time.
Right.
This is the real thing. And the other thing is, when you get your ballot, remember that we are voting for our representatives in the state and in the federal government every 2 years. So this year, go through your ballot and make sure you vote for our wonderful representatives to be with you again. Thank you.
Yeah, Harriet.
Okay. All right.
So,
I need
yes.
to leave, but it was wonderful. Thank you, Michelle.
Barbara,
really,
thank you so much.
You really explained things for me that I wrote everything down and now I know how I'm voting. I like to do that. I was worried about that. Okay. Goodbye,
Michelle,
everybody.
you have anything else to add? This is Lisa.
Lisa, thank you. I can give you, I'm just so pleased to be able to talk to people that are interested in being here for 2 hours, just drilling into this. So this is my heaven. I would like to add that we can give you a summary of voting, everything that Harriet was saying about voting, how well, Ellen's question about her, the signature discrepancy, everything about voting in Orange County, how you can track your ballot really locally, all these things. I can give you a good summary if you want to have me back again sometime before the election, or one of our people other members can do that. And I believe also that, you know, I may be able to extend an invitation. We're getting a special training by the Registrar of Voters this coming Thursday evening. So about 6 days away. And if you're interested, you can come and be part of the Zoom. It's at from 5 to 6:30 on Thursday. I can give you, Lisa,
okay,
that stuff. It is just about, you know, learning, like, okay, what's the deal? Why, you know, if we get a, let's say, a signature discrepancy, do we get a chance to cure that ballot? And, you know, you should have, Ellen, been offered much earlier than 3 months, the thing. So, and you should be able to get it cured to be able to count for that election. So those things are addressable. And I have to say, I will send you, Lisa, a little snippet of our own Registrar of Voters was featured on Meet the Press last Sunday. And
oh yeah,
yeah, so it's
heard
a
about that.
fantastic thing. So I'll send you that. And that's what I have to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Michelle, my legal signature is just S. Bass, not Sheila Bass. So I would assume that on an original application, I wrote S. Bass. So would it be okay on the back of the envelope, which says Sheila Bass, if I wrote it in full and the short version, both?
My short answer is only one. And the best rule of thumb is have it match your driver's license. But we can talk more specifically about, you know, those options, because, you know, as it turns out, as with most things, certain groups are more disqualified than others because of variations. And so I encourage everyone to always update their signature as often as possible. And,
so they're checking it against a driver's license?
Yes, they check it against about every single time you've voted, plus a driver's license. And with the vote center, they, you know, they can do it locally. Yeah, I could give you like a half-hour talk just on the signature matching. So
not today.
Not today. You guys have been fantastic. All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and your loving interest in us, and we appreciate you. So whatever you can send me, and we'll inform everybody. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
And Lisa, can we get a link to the recording?
Sharon is working on that. Yes.
Wonderful.
I don't
Thank
know
you.
how long it'll take to get that together. Sharon, do you know?
I have to figure out how to do it. But when I do, you'll all get it.
You'll get the link.
Yeah, it
All
should
right.
be in where your pictures go. It's weird, but yeah, Zoom.
Yeah, that is where it is. I'll get it. I'll get it to you.
Okay, everybody have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.